The Galactic Coalition Academy stood like a silver mountain against the purple sky of Prime. Thousands of cadets from hundreds of different species walked through its massive halls every day. They came here to learn, to train, and to become officers in the great fleet that protected the known galaxy. Among all these different beings, humans were still new. They had only joined the coalition 30 years ago, and many species still looked at them as weak and unimportant. Walked through the main corridor with her head held high. She was 22 years old, with dark hair tied back in a tight bun and brown eyes that showed no fear. On her right forearm, visible below the sleeve of her gray cadet uniform, was a tattoo. It showed a roaring lion surrounded by stars, with numbers beneath it that meant nothing to most aliens who saw it. She had been at the academy for 6 months now. 6 months of whispers behind her back. 6 months of being pushed aside in the food line. 6 months of instructors doubting her abilities before she even tried. Humans were rare here. Only 12 of them attended the academy this year, scattered across different training groups. Was the only human in Combat Division 7. The corridor opened into a wide training area where cadets gathered before their morning exercises. Found her usual spot near the back wall, away from the main groups. She watched as the other cadets talked and laughed with each other. They were tall with their blue skin and 4 arms. They were small with their insect-like bodies and clicking voices. They were massive who stood 3 meters tall and had skin like stone. And then there were They were a proud species. They had ruled a small empire before joining the coalition, and they never let anyone forget it. They stood about 2 meters tall, with scaled skin that ranged from green to black, and faces that looked somewhat like earth lizards. Their eyes were yellow with slit pupils, and their voices carried a natural hiss. Vex was the worst of them. He was the son of an admiral, and he made sure everyone knew it. His scales were dark green, almost black, and he wore extra decorations on his uniform that showed his family's status. He had a group of followers who laughed at everything he said and backed him up whenever he caused trouble. Had learned to avoid him. She took different routes through the academy. She arrived at training early and left late. She sat alone at meals and kept her eyes down in classes. But the academy was only so big, and Vex seemed to enjoy finding her. Today was no different. She saw him enter the training area with his group. His yellow eyes scanned the room, and she knew the moment he spotted her. A smile spread across his scaled face as he walked toward her with slow, confident steps. Stayed where she was. Running would only make it worse. "Look at this," Vex said loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear. "The little human is here again. I thought maybe she had finally quit." His followers laughed. A few other cadets turned to watch. Most looked away quickly, not wanting to get involved. "Good morning," Cadet said. Her voice was flat and calm. "It speaks," Vex hissed, "but it does not show proper respect. When a of noble blood speaks to you, human, you should bow." Kept her eyes on his face. Coalition regulations do not require cadets to bow to other cadets, regardless of family background. The laughter stopped. Vex's followers exchanged nervous glances. Several other cadets in the area were now watching openly. Vex stepped closer. He was much taller than, and he used his height to look down at her with clear disgust. "Regulations," he repeated. "You humans love your regulations, your rules, your procedures. Maybe that is because you have nothing else. No history, no power, no strength." "Humans have all of those things," said quietly. "Is that so?" Vex leaned even closer. His breath smelled like copper. "I have studied human history. Your species spent most of its existence fighting itself, killing each other over tiny pieces of land, over different beliefs, over the color of your own skin." He laughed, and it was an ugly sound. "And now you think you belong among the stars. You think you deserve to stand beside species that have traveled between worlds for thousands of years." Said nothing. There was nothing to say that would change his mind. "Your silence proves my point," Vex said. He reached out and grabbed her right arm, pulling it up so her tattoo was visible. What is this marking? Some primitive tribal custom. Let go of my arm, said. Her voice had changed. There was something harder in it now. Vex ignored her. He examined the tattoo with exaggerated interest. A creature of some kind, and numbers. What do they mean? Is this how humans count? On their own bodies because they cannot remember otherwise. I said let go. Vex looked at her with mock surprise. Or what human? What will you do? Then he struck her. It was a fast blow, a backhand across her face that sent her stumbling to the side. Tasted blood where her lip had split against her teeth. The sound of the impact echoed in the sudden silence of the training area. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Violence between cadets was forbidden, but Vex's family had power. His father was an admiral. Everyone knew that complaints against him went nowhere. Straightened slowly. She touched her lip and looked at the blood on her fingers. Then she looked at Vex. You will regret that, she said. Vex laughed loudly. Regret? What will you do? Report me. My father will have any complaint dismissed before the end of the day. Run to your human friends. All 12 of you together could not stand against me. He turned to his followers, spreading his arms wide. You see, this is what humans are, weak, soft. They threaten but cannot act. They. Cadet. The voice cut through the room like a blade. It was calm and quiet, but it carried absolute authority. Everyone turned to see who had spoken. Standing at the entrance to the training area was a figure that made even the massive cadet step back. He was old. His gray hair was cut short, and deep lines marked his face. He wore the black uniform of the Coalition Special Command, and on his chest were more medals and decorations than most cadets had ever seen in one place. But what caught everyone's attention was his right arm. It was metal, a prosthetic that gleamed silver under the training area lights, and below the elbow, clearly visible, was a tattoo exactly like's. A roaring lion surrounded by stars, the same numbers. I am Commander, the old man said, and I would very much like to know why you just struck a cadet bearing the mark of Alpha Force. The color drained from Vex's face. His followers stepped away from him. Even the instructors who had been ignoring the confrontation suddenly stood at attention. Alpha Force. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I did not know, Vex stammered. The mark, I did not recognize. Ignorance, Commander said, walking forward with slow, measured steps, is not an excuse. It is a failure. He stopped directly in front of Vex. Despite being shorter than the young, he seemed to tower over him. Do you know what Alpha Force is, Cadet? Vex's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Commander smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I think, he said softly, that we are all about to learn. Stood frozen in place, blood still on her lip, watching as the quiet morning became something much larger than a simple confrontation. She looked down at her tattoo, at the lion and the stars, at the numbers that represented a date that had changed human history. She had known this day might come. She had hoped it would not. But now that it had arrived, she found that she was not afraid. She was ready. Commander turned to look at her, and for a moment something passed between them. Recognition, understanding, pride. Cadet, he said, come with me. We have much to discuss. He glanced back at Vex, who stood pale and trembling. And you, Cadet, will remain here until security arrives to escort you to the Commandant's office. Security, Vex found his voice. My father. Your father, Commander interrupted, is about to learn that there are powers in this galaxy older and more respected than his title. He gestured for to follow. Come, Cadet. The whole truth has stayed hidden long enough. As walked past Vex, she saw real fear in his yellow eyes. Not fear of punishment, something deeper. Something that told her the knew exactly what Alpha Force meant, even if he had not recognized the symbol. Whatever was about to happen, it would change everything. Commander led through corridors she had never seen before. They descended past the training levels, past the residential areas, past the administrative floors. The walls changed from bright metal to dark stone. The lights became fewer and dimmer. Finally, they reached a heavy door marked with symbols did not recognize. Commander pressed his metal hand against a scanner, and the door slid open with a deep grinding sound. Beyond was a room filled with shadows and light. Screens covered the walls, showing star maps and data streams. A long table dominated the center, surrounded by empty chairs, and at the far end, illuminated by a single spotlight, was a display case. Inside the case was a suit of armor, black and silver by weapons fire, marked by burns and cuts that showed decades of battle, and on the chest, painted in red that still seemed to glow, was the lion symbol. "Do you know whose armor that is?" Commander asked. His throat was tight. Her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "Yes," she whispered, "it belonged to my grandmother." Commander nodded. General Sophia, Alpha Force 1, the woman who stood alone against the Void Swarm at the Battle of Gate. He turned to face fully. And the reason humanity was invited to join the coalition at all. Stared at the armor, at the scratches and burns, at the lion that her grandmother had chosen as her symbol, the same lion that had tattooed on her own arm on the day she decided to follow in Sophia's footsteps. "Why does no one know?" asked. "Why does everyone think humans are weak and worthless?" Commander sighed. He suddenly looked very tired. "Because your grandmother asked us to keep it secret. She believed humanity needed to earn its place through merit, not through riding on the glory of one battle." He paused. "She also knew that some species would never accept humans as equals no matter what we did. She thought hiding the truth would give humanity time to grow stronger." "It has been 30 years, said. "Humans are still treated like inferior beings." "Yes." Commander walked to the armor and placed his metal hand against the glass. Sophia was wise, but she could not predict everything. Hiding the truth protected humanity from some dangers, but it also prevented us from claiming the respect we earned. He turned back to, "I think it is time for that to change." "What do you mean?" "I mean," the old commander said, "that what happened today in the training area will not stay quiet." Vex struck a cadet bearing the Alpha Force mark in front of dozens of witnesses. "By tomorrow, every species in the academy will know." He smiled, and this time it was warm. "The secret is out, and we need to decide what to tell them." Looked at her tattoo, at the lion, at the numbers that showed the date of the battle that had saved the coalition from destruction. "Tell them the truth," she said, "all of it." Commander nodded. "Then sit down, cadet, because the truth is a very long story." He gestured to the chairs around the table. "And it begins with a war that almost destroyed everything." Sat down. Commander activated the screens around them, filling the room with images of battles fought before she was born. And outside, in the corridors of the Galactic Coalition Academy, whispers were already spreading. Whispers about the human girl with the strange tattoo, about the old commander who had appeared from nowhere, about Alpha Force and a history that had been hidden for 30 years. The secret was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The screens around filled with images of fire and darkness. She saw worlds burning. She saw fleets of ships torn apart like paper. She saw creatures that were not truly alive, mechanical things that moved like swarms of insects across the stars. "The Void Swarm," Commander said. "They appeared 43 years ago at the edge of Coalition space. Nobody knows where they came from. Some think they were ancient weapons left behind by a species that died long before any of us existed. Others believe they came from another galaxy entirely." He shook his head. "It does not matter. What matters is what they did." The images showed the first attacks. Coalition ships tried to fight back, but the swarm adapted to every weapon within hours. Lasers became useless. Missiles were intercepted. Even the most powerful warships were overwhelmed by sheer numbers. In the first year, the swarm destroyed 17 coalition worlds, Commander continued. Billions died. The fleet was broken. Species that had been part of the coalition for thousands of years began to withdraw, trying to protect their own systems. His voice grew heavy. We were losing. What about humans? Asked. Humanity had not been discovered yet. Your species was still confined to your home system, barely beginning to explore your nearest neighbors. Commander smiled slightly. But the swarm found you. A scout group passed through your system, probably by accident. Your early defense forces engaged them. The screen showed Earth ships, primitive compared to coalition vessels, clumsy and slow. But they fought. The coalition detected the battle and sent observers. What they saw changed everything. Leaned forward, what did they see? They saw your people adapt, Commander said. The swarm had pattern recognition that let them counter any attack within hours. Coalition weapons became useless almost immediately. But humans, he pulled up data streams that meant nothing too. Humans did not follow patterns. Every ship, every pilot, every soldier fought differently. You used tactics that made no logical sense. You improvised with damaged equipment. You turned your own weaknesses into weapons. The images showed human ships ramming swarm vessels, pilots ejecting and fighting hand-to-hand in space, missiles in mid-flight to do unexpected things. The swarm could not adapt, Commander said, because there was no pattern to adapt to. Humanity was chaos given form, and chaos was the one thing the swarm could not defeat. Felt a chill run down her spine, so the coalition contacted us. They begged you for help, Commander corrected. The greatest powers in the galaxy came to Earth with their hands open, asking for assistance from a species that had not yet left its own solar system. He laughed softly. Your leaders could have demanded anything. Instead, they asked only for the chance to fight. What happened next? Commander's face grew serious. The coalition formed Alpha Force, a special unit of human soldiers equipped with the best technology available. Your grandmother was among the first volunteers. She was 24 years old, younger than you are now. The screen showed a young woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. Felt tears threaten again. She had seen pictures of her grandmother, but never like this. Never as a young soldier preparing for war. Alpha Force was sent to the front lines. For 2 years they fought battle after battle. They learned the swarm's weaknesses. They developed tactics that the coalition had never imagined. And slowly, the war began to turn. But something went wrong, said. She knew the story, or at least parts of it. Something went very wrong. Commander's voice dropped. The swarm was not mindless. It learned from humanity just as humanity learned from it. And it developed a new strategy, a direct attack on the coalition's heart. They gathered their remaining forces and pushed toward Gate. The screen showed a massive space station surrounded by swirling energy. Gate was the central hub of the coalition's communication and transport network. If it fell, every member species would be cut off from each other. The coalition would collapse within months. My grandmother was there, whispered. Alpha Force was the only unit close enough to respond in time. They had 47 soldiers. The swarm had over 10,000 vessels. Commander paused. The coalition ordered them to evacuate, to fall back and regroup, to preserve their forces for future battles. But they did not. No, they did not. The old commander's eyes were distant, lost in memories. Your grandmother sent a message to Coalition Command. She said only 4 words: humans do not retreat. The screens filled with images of battle. 47 soldiers against an army. Small ships weaving through swarms of enemies. Explosions lighting up the darkness of space like new stars. For 17 hours, Alpha Force held Gate. They fought in their ships until the ships were destroyed. They fought in emergency suits until their oxygen ran out. They fought hand-to-hand with blades and bare fists when everything else failed. How many survived? Already knew the answer. 3, Your grandmother was one of them. She lost her left leg and her right eye, but she was standing when the coalition reinforcements finally arrived. Commander touched his metal arm. I lost this trying to pull her out of the wreckage. She refused to leave until she was certain the gate was secure. Looked at the armor in its display case, at the burns and cuts that told the story of that impossible battle. The swarm never recovered, Commander continued. The losses they suffered at Gate broke their ability to coordinate. Within 6 months, the coalition had destroyed them completely. He turned to face. Your grandmother saved the galaxy, not humanity, your grandmother specifically, and the 46 soldiers who died beside her. Then why does no one know? His voice cracked with frustration. Why do species like the treat humans like worthless primitives? Because Sophia asked us to hide the truth. Commander pulled up an image of her grandmother as an older woman, wearing the rank insignia of a general. She believed the coalition would put too much pressure on humanity if they knew. She worried that humans would become arrogant, or that other species would resent us. She wanted your people to grow naturally, to earn respect through decades of service rather than one moment of glory. That was a mistake. Commander nodded slowly. Perhaps, but it was her choice to make. The coalition owed her everything. When she asked for secrecy, they agreed. He sighed. Only the highest levels of coalition command know the true story. The rest was covered up, classified, buried in archives that no one reads. Stood and walked to the armor. She pressed her own hand against the glass, her tattoo clearly visible. Why do you have the same mark? She asked. Because I was there, Commander replied. I was one of the 3 survivors, your grandmother, myself, and a man named who died 10 years ago. He showed his own tattoo, the lion and stars. We swore to carry the symbol forever, to remember what was sacrificed, to honor those who did not survive. And my tattoo. Sophia told your mother the truth before she died. Your mother told you, and you chose to carry the mark as well. The commander's voice was gentle. You are the last of the line, the granddaughter of the woman who saved us all. Turn to face him. What happens now? Now the secret comes out. That fool struck you in front of witnesses. By morning, everyone will be asking about the tattoo, about Alpha Force, about why a special command officer interrupted a simple training exercise. Commander straightened. We can try to hide the truth again, or we can finally tell the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Tell them, said without hesitation. Are you sure? Your life will change. You will no longer be just another cadet. You will be the granddaughter of Sophia. Every species in the coalition will look at you differently. Thought about the 6 months of mockery, the whispers, the pushes in the corridor, the constant, grinding prejudice that treated humans as inferior beings. Good, she said. It is time they saw us for what we really are. Commander smiled. It was a fierce expression, full of pride and anticipation. Then let us begin. There is a coalition-wide broadcast tomorrow celebrating the anniversary of the swarm's defeat. Every member species will be watching. He walked to a console and began entering commands. I think it is time to tell them the truth about who actually won that war. Watched him work. Her lip still ached where Vex had struck her. Blood still stained her uniform. But inside, something had changed. The fear and caution that had guided her for 6 months was gone. In its place was something stronger. Pride. Purpose. The knowledge that she came from a line of heroes who had done the impossible. Tomorrow, the galaxy would know. And would make sure they never forgot. The next morning arrived cold and gray. Barely slept. She spent the night in the secret room with Commander, reviewing records, watching footage, preparing for what was to come. When they finally emerged, the academy was already buzzing with rumors. Cadets gathered in clusters, whispering and pointing when walked past. Instructors watched her with new interest. The atmosphere had changed completely. Vex was nowhere to be seen. He has been confined to quarters, Commander explained. His father is trying to intervene, but the commandant is not responding to his messages. The old soldier smiled grimly. Admiral is about to learn that some mistakes cannot be fixed with political pressure. They walked to the Academy's main assembly hall. Thousands of seats rose in curved tiers around a central stage. Screens covered every wall, ready to display the broadcast that would reach every coalition system. The anniversary celebration was a major event. Every species sent representatives. Leaders, generals, ambassadors. They all gathered to remember the end of the Swarm War. For 40 years, they had celebrated without knowing the full truth. Today, that would change. Was guided to a seat in the front row. Around her sat the highest-ranking officers and diplomats in the coalition. Many looked at her with confusion, wondering why a simple human cadet deserved such placement. The ceremony began with speeches. Coalition leaders talked about cooperation and sacrifice. They praised the combined fleet that had finally destroyed the swarm. They mentioned battles and commanders, victories and losses. They did not mention Alpha Force. They did not mention humanity at all. Felt anger rising in her chest. 40 years of lies. 40 years of humanity's sacrifice being erased from history. She understood her grandmother's reasons now, but understanding did not make it right. Then Commander stepped onto the stage. The speeches stopped. Thousands of faces turned toward the old human soldier with his metal arm and his medals, and his presence that demanded attention. "Honored guests," he began, his voice carrying through the hall without effort. "For 40 years we have gathered to celebrate the defeat of the Void Swarm. For 40 years we have told a story of unified coalition strength overcoming an impossible enemy." He paused. That story was a lie. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Leaders exchanged glances. Security forces shifted nervously. "The lie was told for good reasons," Commander continued. "It was told to protect a young species that had barely left its home world. It was told at the request of the greatest soldier I have ever known. But lies, even kind ones, cause damage when they last too long." He touched a control, and the screens around the hall changed. They showed the true story of the Swarm War. They showed humanity's first contact, the desperate battle in the Sol system, the arrival of coalition observers. They showed Alpha Force being formed, the campaigns along the front lines, the turning tide of war. And they showed Gate. The footage was old and grainy, recovered from damaged ships and stations. But it showed everything. 47 human soldiers against 10,000 swarm vessels. The 17-hour battle that decided the fate of the galaxy. The assembly hall was silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched as their carefully maintained version of history crumbled away. "Sophia was my commander," Commander said. His voice had grown rough with emotion. "She was 24 years old when she decided to hold that gate. 46 of our comrades died beside us. They died so that all of you could live." He pointed to the screen where an image of young Sophia appeared. Dark hair, fierce eyes, a lion symbol on her chest. "This woman saved your coalition, your worlds, your children, and you repaid her by forgetting she ever existed." The silence broke into chaos. Leaders shouted questions. Military officers demanded verification. Some species looked at the humans in the crowd with new eyes, shock, disbelief, and slowly dawning respect. Commander raised his hand. The noise gradually died down. "I am not here for revenge," he said. "I am not here to shame anyone. I am here because yesterday something happened that made me realize the lie had gone on long enough." He gestured toward. "This young woman is Sophia, granddaughter. She came to this academy to serve the coalition, just as her grandmother did. And yesterday she was struck by another cadet who believed humans were weak and worthless." Every eye in the assembly turned too. She stood, her split lip still visible, her tattoo exposed for all to see. "Look at that symbol," Commander said. "That is the mark of Alpha Force. That is the mark of the soldiers who gave everything to save you, and some of you have been treating their descendants like inferior beings." His voice grew cold. "That ends today." The delegation shifted uncomfortably. Several of them would not meet eyes. "I have brought evidence," Commander continued. "Battle records, medical files, communications logs, everything needed to prove that what I have told you is true. Coalition intelligence has all of it. The lies are over." He stepped back from the center of the stage and looked at. "Would you like to say something, Cadet?" Had not expected this. She had prepared to watch, not to speak. But looking at all those faces, all those species who had spent decades looking down on humanity, she found she had plenty to say. She walked to the stage. Her legs felt unsteady. Her heart pounded so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. But she kept walking until she stood where Commander had stood, facing the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "My grandmother never wanted glory," began. Her voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger with every word. She did not fight at gate for medals or statues or history books. She fought because something terrible was coming, and she was the only one who could stop it. She looked at the delegation, at the empty space where Vex's father should have been sitting. "Humans are not weak. We never were. We are simply different. We do not think in straight lines. We do not follow predictable patterns. We adapt, improvise, and survive." She touched her tattoo. "That is what my grandmother taught us. That is what Alpha Force proved. And that is what I will continue to prove every day I serve in this coalition." She paused, letting her words settle. "You can choose to respect us or continue to dismiss us. That is your right. But know this, humanity will never forget what our ancestors sacrificed. We will never stop striving to be worthy of their memory, and we will never, ever retreat from a fight that matters." She walked back to her seat. The assembly hall remained silent for a long moment. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, a single pair of hands began to clap. More joined in. Within seconds, the entire hall was applauding. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species, standing and clapping for a young human woman who had just told them they had been wrong for 40 years. Sat down. Tears ran down her face, but she did not wipe them away. Commander returned to the stage. "Coalition Command has agreed to officially declassify the Alpha Force records," he announced. "The full truth will be available to every citizen of every member species. The soldiers who died at Gate will finally receive the recognition they deserve." He paused, and his next words were directed at General Sophia will be posthumously awarded the Coalition's highest honor, the Star of Eternal Service. Her granddaughter, Cadet, will receive it on her behalf. The applause erupted again, even louder than before. Closed her eyes. She could almost feel her grandmother's presence watching from somewhere beyond, proud, content, finally at peace. The secret was out, and humanity's place in the galaxy would never be questioned again. The days following the assembly were overwhelming. Became the most famous cadet in the academy overnight. Every species wanted to meet her. Every news organization wanted to interview her. Every history program wanted her to explain what her grandmother had done. She did her best to handle it all, but she was still just a young woman who had come to the academy to learn. The attention was exhausting. What helped was the change in how she was treated. Cadets who had ignored her now nodded with respect. Instructors who had doubted her now praised her dedication. Even the who rarely showed emotion to anyone began greeting her by name. The delegation had left the academy in disgrace. Admiral's attempts to protect his son had backfired completely. When the truth about Alpha Force came out, his political enemies used it against him. He was removed from his position within a week. Vex faced a military tribunal. Striking a cadet was already a serious offense. Striking the granddaughter of the Coalition's greatest hero in front of witnesses while making racist comments about her species, that was something else entirely. Did not attend the tribunal. She had no interest in revenge. She simply wanted to continue her training and prove herself worthy of her grandmother's legacy. But she did receive one visitor she had not expected. It was evening, and she was in her quarters reviewing battle simulations. A chime at her door made her look up. "Enter," she said. The door opened, and Vex stepped inside. He looked terrible. His scales had lost their shine. His yellow eyes were dull and tired. He wore plain clothes instead of his decorated uniform, marking him as a cadet under discipline. Every instinct told her to be cautious. "I am not here to cause trouble," Vex said quickly. His voice was different, quieter, humbler. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I needed to say something." Waited. Vex took a deep breath. "I was wrong about everything, about humans, about you, about what strength really means." He looked at the floor. "My whole life, my father taught me that power comes from family name and political connections, that other species were beneath us, that they were superior because we had ruled an empire." He laughed bitterly. "An empire that joined the coalition because we could not defeat the swarm alone. An empire that was saved by humans we spent decades mocking." "Why are you telling me this?" asked. Vex finally met her eyes. "Because I want you to know that I understand now. When I watched that footage, your grandmother, 47 soldiers against an army, I realized that I have never shown real courage in my entire life. I have bullied and threatened and used my father's name to get what I want, but I have never stood for anything that mattered." He straightened slightly. "The tribunal is going to expel me. I will be sent home in disgrace. My father has already disowned me. Everything I thought I had is gone." "I am sorry," said, and she meant it. Despite everything Vex had done, she could see the broken young man behind the arrogant exterior. "Do not be sorry for me," Vex replied. "Be sorry for all the people I hurt over the years. I was not the first to treat humans badly, and I will not be the last. Your grandmother's story changes things, but prejudice does not disappear overnight." "I know," said, "change takes time." Vex nodded. "Then let me help. I know I cannot undo what I did. I know I will never make the Academy forgive me, but maybe I can make something good come from this." "How?" "I have recordings," Vex said. "Personal files from my father, from other officers. They show how systematic the prejudice against humans has been. Secret orders to overlook human accomplishments. Instructions to make life difficult for human cadets. A coordinated effort to keep your species from advancing." Felt cold anger rising in her chest. She had suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed was different. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because it is the right thing to do." Vex pulled a small data device from his pocket and held it out. "I am already ruined, but you can use this to make sure no other human goes through what you went through." Took the device. It was light in her hand, but she knew it contained something heavy with consequences. "What will you do now?" she asked. Vex smiled sadly. "I do not know. Start over somewhere, I suppose. Try to become someone my family would be ashamed of, someone who actually helps others instead of tearing them down." He moved toward the door. "I know you have no reason to believe me. I know words cannot fix what I did, but I hope someday you can look back and see that at least I tried to make it right." He left without waiting for a response. Stood alone in her quarters, holding the data device. The information it contained would expose years of institutional prejudice. It would force the coalition to confront how they had really treated humanity. It would cause upheaval and controversy and painful conversations. She walked to her window and looked out at the purple sky of Prime. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were learning the truth about Alpha Force, learning that the species they had dismissed was the one that had saved them all. Her grandmother had wanted humanity to earn respect through merit. That was still the goal, but merit meant nothing if the system was rigged against you from the start. Activated the data device and began reviewing its contents. The fight was not over, but for the first time in her life, she felt like she had a real chance to win. Commander found her the next morning in the secret room beneath the academy. She had spent the night going through the files, organizing evidence, preparing a report. "You look like you have not slept," the old soldier observed. "I have not," showed him the data device. "Vex came to see me last night. He gave me this." Commander took the device and spent several minutes reviewing its contents. His expression grew darker with each file. "This is worse than I expected," he finally said. "This shows a deliberate campaign to suppress human advancement within the coalition, orders signed by admirals and senators, decades of coordinated discrimination. What do we do with it?" Commander was quiet for a moment. "We could release it publicly. Let the galaxy see how humans have been treated. It would cause chaos, but it would also force real change. Lord. Or we could use it strategically. Approach the leaders responsible privately. Demand reforms in exchange for keeping the evidence secret." Shook her head. "That is what politicians do. That is what my grandmother was trying to avoid when she asked for secrecy, deals and compromises and quiet arrangements." She met Commander's eyes. "I think we need to be loud. I think we need to let everyone see exactly what has been happening." The old soldier smiled. "You really are Sophia's granddaughter." They released the files that afternoon. Within hours, the coalition was in uproar. Leaders who had spent years undermining humanity found themselves exposed. The evidence was undeniable: written orders, recorded conversations, documented incidents of discrimination. For the second time in 2 days, humans were at the center of galactic attention. But this time, it was not just about past heroism. It was about present injustice. Expected backlash. She expected powerful beings to fight against the exposure. Instead, she found something unexpected: allies. Other species had been watching how humans were treated. Some had experienced similar prejudice themselves. They saw the evidence and recognized their own struggles reflected in it. One by one, they stepped forward to stand with humanity. They were first. Their representative gave a speech declaring solidarity with humans, citing their own history of being dismissed as slow thinkers by faster species. The followed, their clicking voices united in support. Even some spoke out, younger officers who had grown tired of their elders' prejudices. The coalition had no choice but to respond. An emergency session was called. Reforms were proposed. For the first time in 40 years, humans were given full representation in coalition leadership. Watched it all unfold from the secret room, surrounded by screens showing debates and votes and species finally treating humanity as equals. Commander stood beside her. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said. Would she? Was not sure. She wanted us to earn our place quietly. I am doing the exact opposite. She wanted what was best for humanity. The situation has changed. Her approach was right for its time. Your approach is right for now." He put his hand on her shoulder. "Sophia would have adapted. She always did." Looked at the armor in its display case, at the scars and burns that told the story of an impossible battle. "I am going to finish my training," she said. "I am going to become an officer, and I am going to spend my career making sure humans are never treated like second-class beings again." Commander nodded. "I would expect nothing less." A message alert appeared on one of the screens. Opened it and found a formal notification from Coalition Command. She had been promoted. No longer a simple cadet, she was now a junior lieutenant, assigned to the Historical Preservation Division. Her first duty would be overseeing the creation of a proper memorial for the soldiers who died at Gate. 46 names that had been forgotten for 40 years would finally be carved in stone. Saved the message and turned off the screen. There was much work to do, reforms to implement, memorials to build, a species to lift up. But not tonight. Tonight she would rest. She would sleep in her quarters and dream of her grandmother, young and fierce, standing against an army of darkness. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. And was ready. The memorial ceremony took place 6 months later. It was held at Gate itself, which had been rebuilt and expanded over the decades but still bore scars from the battle that had saved it. Stood on a platform overlooking a vast plaza filled with beings from every coalition species. Millions more watched through broadcasts that reached every corner of the galaxy. Behind her was a wall of black stone, 50 meters high and 100 meters wide. On its surface, in letters of gold, were 46 names. The soldiers of Alpha Force who had given their lives so that everyone else could live. At the center of the wall was a larger inscription. Alpha Force, they did not retreat. And below that, in slightly smaller letters, in honor of General Sophia, REYS and all who served beside HER. Wore her new dress uniform, with the lion symbol proudly displayed on her shoulder. At her side was the Star of Eternal Service, the Coalition's highest honor, which she had received on her grandmother's behalf. She stepped forward to speak. 47 years ago, the Void Swarm came to destroy everything we hold dear. 40 years ago, the war ended because 47 soldiers refused to accept defeat. She paused, looking at the names carved in gold. For 40 years, their sacrifice was hidden, forgotten, erased from history because someone decided it was better that way. Her voice carried across the plaza, strong and clear. I am not here to blame anyone for that choice. I understand why it was made, but I am here to say that the hiding is over, the truth is out, and these names will never be forgotten again. She turned to face the wall. To the soldiers of Alpha Force, we remember you, we honor you, we promise to carry forward the courage you showed, the sacrifice you made, the example you set. She touched the stone, feeling its cool surface against her palm. You are not forgotten. You will never be forgotten. The plaza was silent. Millions of beings, present and watching from afar, held their breath. Then from somewhere in the crowd, a voice began to sing. It was an old human song, from before humanity had ever reached the stars. A song about courage and sacrifice and standing against impossible odds. Did not know who started it, but soon other voices joined in. Humans scattered throughout the crowd, singing together. And then something unexpected happened. They began to hum along, their deep voices adding bass to the melody. The added clicking rhythms that somehow fit perfectly. Other species found their own ways to join in, not knowing the words, but understanding the feeling. By the end, the entire plaza was united in song. Thousands of different beings, hundreds of different species, all honoring the memory of 46 soldiers who had died so that they could live. Let the tears fall freely. This was what her grandmother had wanted, even if she had not known it. Not just respect for humanity, but connection, unity, the recognition that all beings, regardless of species, shared something fundamental. The song ended. The silence that followed was different from before, not empty but full. Full of emotion, full of meaning, full of promise. Commander joined on the platform. He looked older than ever, but there was peace in his eyes that she had not seen before. It is done, he said quietly. 40 years of hiding, 40 years of waiting, finally done. Is it what you hoped for? Asked. It is more. He looked at the wall of names, at the crowd still gathered in the plaza, at the galaxy watching through a billion screens. Sophia would be proud, not just of the memorial but of you, of what you have started. What I have started. Commander smiled. The reforms are just the beginning. Humans are being accepted into positions of leadership across the coalition. Species that used to ignore us now seek our advice. The prejudice is not gone, but it is weakening every day. He put his hand on her shoulder. You did that. You and Vex's files and the courage to speak the truth. Shook her head. I just did what needed to be done. What grandmother would have done if she had seen what was happening? That is exactly my point. The old soldier squeezed her shoulder and stepped back. Sophia could not be here to finish what she started, but she found someone who could. He turned and walked away, leaving alone on the platform. She looked out at the plaza, at the diverse beings still gathering in groups to talk and reflect. She saw humans walking alongside and even a few. She saw children of different species playing together, oblivious to the prejudices their parents had been taught. This was the coalition her grandmother had fought to protect. This was the future she had been willing to die for. Touched her tattoo one last time. The lion and the stars, the numbers that marked the date when everything changed. "I will make you proud," she whispered to the wind. "I promise." Then she walked down from the platform and joined the crowd. There was work to do, reforms to implement, a species to represent. But that could wait until tomorrow. Today was for remembering. The sun set over Gate, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The memorial wall caught the light, making the 46 names seem to glow. Stood before the wall as the last visitors departed. She was not ready to leave, not yet. "You know," she said softly, as if speaking to someone just out of sight, "I used to wonder if I was good enough, if I could ever live up to what you did, if I deserved to carry your name." She traced the letters of her grandmother's name with her finger. "I think I understand now. It was never about being good enough. It was about doing what needs to be done, even when it seems impossible, even when everyone else has given up." A gentle breeze moved through the plaza, carrying the faint scent of flowers that had been left by visitors. "Humans do not retreat. That is what you taught us, and I will not retreat, not from the challenges ahead, not from the work that still needs to be done, not from anything." She stepped back and saluted the wall, a formal gesture but one that felt right. "Thank you, grandmother, for everything." Then she turned and walked away. Behind her the names glowed in the fading light. 46 soldiers, one battle, a legacy that would last forever. And ahead of her a galaxy waited. Granddaughter of heroes, walked toward her future without fear. The story of Alpha Force was finally complete. And humanity's story was just beginning.